Be me, like 20-year-old. Live across the street from one of the largest graveyards in my city. One day, I'm walking in a different part of town several miles away. Very tall, middle-aged man walking down the sidewalk in opposite direction, pushing a bicycle with a big burlap bag fixed to the back, wearing too many clothes for the weather. Both his clothes and his bike look like they come from the 1950s/60ish period. Can't tell if he's homeless or a hipster. Approaches slowly and stops right in front of me. "Excuse me, can I ask you a question?" Tell him I'm in a rush because I'm on my way to work and also annoyed at this point, thinking he's a bum about to ask for money. "Please, it's just one question." "Okay, fine, what? Can you tell me about a lie that you once believed in until you discovered the truth?" What the fuck? Not the question I was expecting. Think about it for a second, then end up telling him a poem I read on a bench earlier that day, which I thought fit the subject matter. He pulls out a small leather-bound notebook and a pencil and begins carefully writing down every word. Ask him what the fuck is he on about. Tell me he spent his entire lifetime believing in a lie and only recently discovered the truth. I realize as other people are walking by, no one seems to notice us or change the way they're walking to move around us. Strange, because this guy looks insanely out of place from the hood and is taking up half the sidewalk with his saddle-bagged bicycle. He starts asking me if I've ever been to the graveyard, the one I live across the street from. No way he could have known where I lived. There we were, on the other side. Also, weird-ass question, because it's a cemetery. It's not like a tourist attraction. He goes on to talk about how beautiful it is there, and how I would love it. Tell me he's on the way there now, and wants me to join. Start to get spooked. If not a ghost, thinking he's definitely a weirdo. Tell him I've already seen it, because I live right next to it, and anyway, I'm running late for work. He becomes really insistent, being like, "You can take the day off. You really need to see this." Repeat that I've already seen it. "I'm good, thank you." He responds, "No, but you haven't seen it like I've seen it. You haven't seen the way the wind blows the tops of the trees on the fall morning." Repeat that I'm late for work and nope out in the other direction. Be me, 17, Sydney, Australia. Live on Parramatta Road. First high school GF lives 4 suburbs away. We tend to chat on the phone until 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. Tell me she's having a panic attack. "Can you come over and see me?" Looks at time. 2 a.m. Give. Aw, fuck. Fuck it. I'm an apprentice mechanic, and I'm not working tomorrow, so I can go see her. Know my mom will be pissed if I leave, but do it anyway. Keep the door unlocked. Live in a high security apartment block, but I can ninja back in. Youngstupidlove.jpg. GF lives down the road from one of the biggest graveyards in the southern hemisphere. Walked at her place. Talked to her through her bedroom window outside. Calm her down, exchange "I love you." She goes to bed, then I leave to get home. I don't know why, but I reckon I'll try to shortcut it home as I'm buggered, but it goes past the cemetery. Yeah, mad, why not.exe. Get to road that runs along cemetery. Looks at time and it's past 3 a.m. Suddenly, a car drives next to me and slows down to my pace. Yeah, mad. I'm either getting robbed or dying tonight. Dude just stares at me while keeping at my pace. Suddenly, he speeds off, makes a U-turn or a U-turn, and parks on the opposite side of the road/graveyard side. Gets out of his car, walks up to the fence without even batting an eye to me, looks into the graveyard and starts to wave at someone. I'm out.io. Look at him once more, and he's giving the come here wave to whoever this person/entity is. Leg it home. Mom knows I've left and locked the main door, locking me out until midday the next day. Never told GF, Mom, or anyone else. Also, something tried to possess me while I was in a hospital after a hand surgery. I've got a graveyard story from New Zealand. Be me, circa 2010 summer break. On a whim, me and friend Jay go to a big old graveyard near sundown. Graveyard isn't a suburban area, but it is quite dense, and sprawling with a few patches of preserved native forest and streams running along the graves. Our only plan was to smoke weed, and it was getting dark when we arrived. But we were youthfully determined, and walked some distance into a more unkempt wooded area down the path. While we were walking, the street lamps went on. They were like small fall gas lamps, set at long distances along the winding main track. I looked behind us and noticed a figure, presumably a man, walking behind us at a distance. This wouldn't have been unusual, except that when I turned around, he froze. I continue looking for some time before it chills all over and I turn around. Creeped out, but try not to be. I turn my head quickly over my shoulder and see him step behind a lamppost about 3 posts behind us, becoming totally invisible as he stepped back into the shadow and behind the harsh light. Extremely spooked. Don't want to bring it up to Jay because I don't want to sound paranoid. As we walk deeper into the cemetery, the lanterns are spaced further apart and we turn off track into a forested grove where there's a seat and a chair area and a small clearing. On the way, keep looking back over the shoulder, but no sign of the figure, and already I've started to rationalize the event. We smoke in the cemetery for a bit when I notice a fleeting movement behind a tree some meters away behind my friend's head. While trying to pay attention to whatever stoned ramblings of my friend, I watched the trees behind him. It happened again. A sudden movement, and I could clearly see a figure of a shadowed man jump out behind one tree to another. Something unnatural about the way it moves. My stoned brain is torn between the fear of this leaping larrikin coming towards us and the fear of sounding insane trying to alert Jay, and fear of alerting this figure to my having seen him. I can't quite remember how, but Jay ended up seeing this guy of his own accord, and we both silently noped out. Jay was so unnerved he left his pipe behind on the seat. It doesn't sound so scary typing it out like this, but I shat bricks at the time. The guy was actually too far off for me to make out clearly. What was so creepy was how he seemed to be performing, like he stepped behind the light knowing he would be invisible behind the light, and the way he jumped behind the trees was so unnatural. It wasn't how anyone would actually do the movement. He was looking straight ahead in my direction and jumping sideways from behind one tree trunk to another. We didn't see him on the way back. Very creepy experience. Has anyone heard of graveyards appearing out of nowhere or seen one? I've got my own story that happened to me. Be me, like 7 months ago. Just moved across country, now in Tennessee. Having a late night walk around 2 a.m, trying to get used to the place. Nice quiet night, moon is bright. Trying to get home but can't find the path where I came from. As I'm walking around, I see a large graveyard spanning across the area. Now no, I'm officially lost. End up getting out phone and looking up directions. Using Google Maps, pinging my location. Internet is being shitty because it just is. Finally load up where I'm at. Doesn't show a graveyard, but whatever. End up finding the right path. Turns out I made a turn early. Easily get back home. Call it a night. Later, wondering about the graveyard. Didn't know there was a huge one right next to my house, so I want to see it. During the day, drive over where the graveyard would be. There isn't one. Just a different set of buildings. Drive around the area, wondering where it is. Look at maps again. Still no graveyard. Only ones are small, and not near where I was before. Still no explanation on why I saw one. The graveyard was sorta similar to this one, but it was pretty big. And visibly, not what buildings are there now. Even after driving by the area at night, it looks nothing at all like what I saw. I got no logical explanation other than I hallucinated. I had a similar experience with this. Not gonna use Greentext because I don't know how. But basically, me and my dad were walking through my grandma's land. Basic hiking and shit, then all of a sudden we find a random unmarked graveyard. Tombstones from like the 1830s, in middle of fuck nowhere backwoods Mississippi. We end up feeling weird and intrigued. We leave and ask grandma about it, and she had no idea. Went there recently, and some of the tombstones had either fallen out of place or just disappeared flat out. Did you ever read the tombstones, OP? What were the dates? Didn't get close enough to read them. Was more focused on the being lost bit. I wasn't scared or anything though. Nothing was spooky like how people say happens. I still just find it weird to have seen an entire non-existent place during a clear night on a full moon. And then a couple of days later, being completely unable to find it. All the while, I can picture it perfectly, existing features included. I wonder if it was either a gone to another universe or gone back in time, or maybe future. I don't believe there was ever a graveyard there, seeing as there's a bunch of buildings there now, but there might have been one during the Civil War, even though I've never seen any signage to imply as such. Against my better judgment, I'm gonna tell this story. I'd strongly encourage you not to go and bother whatever was involved, or if you do, at least bring some kind of offering. Anyway, be me, 2012 to 2013 or so, senior in rural New Hampshire high school. Girl I'm close with likes spooky things, and so do I. We head out in the middle of the night and visit creepy graveyards, reportedly haunted sites, interesting areas. One night we're in Mason, New Hampshire, pig related. It's the dead of winter, snow everywhere. We park at the church and walk to the graveyard, joking around, happily exploring. Every graveyard we'd visited, we'd aim for the back corners and cross the rock walls. Our rationale was that in the olden days, people who'd done something wrong were buried just outside of the hollowed ground in unmarked graves. So that's where we'd find the most activity. As we're walking towards the back corner, just the two of us, I'm suddenly struck in the chest, hard enough to almost be bowled over. Stagger back, almost knock her over. She's like half my height. Shock, look up. Tall dark figure that 100% wasn't there before, standing behind the rock wall we were heading towards. This was like 50 feet away. They couldn't have hit me. I get in front of my friend. She's small, must protect. Insist on leaving. She stays long enough to mutter an apology, then we hightail it out of there. One of the scariest experiences of my life, and nothing really even happened. It's true what they say. If you go looking for something, you're bound to find it. I really have to go back and revisit that graveyard one day. It was one of the things I encountered that really stuck with me. I have a couple of less than exciting stories, but one that scared the ever-living shit out of me. Friends and I are thrill seekers. Explore graveyards to try to experience the paranormal. Walk through the graveyard with nothing noteworthy happening. Walk to the Yarrow hut across the road. Call friend and ask where they are. See an artificial light swaying like it's in someone's hand. Ask friend if he's by the gate to the graveyard. Start talking to friend in the phone about how he can't have his phone at his side and still talk to me. Start trying to figure out what I'm going on about. Hang up and walk to the road. Stomach drops and I get goosebumps as soon as I get to the edge of the road. My friend, who stayed with the car, and the other friend who went in with me, there were 4 of us, 2 teams of 2. See the light go behind a tree. Curious as fuck, but too spooked to get any closer. See a head poke out from behind the tree, goes back behind the tree and peeks out again. This happens a couple of times. Think it's my friend making sure the coast is clear. Doesn't want to get caught trespassing. The head is solid grayish white. Friend had a hoodie on, but this had no facial features. Other friends see it too, and points to what looks like a leg sticking out from the other side of the tree. As soon as he points it out, it stands up, walks out in front of the tree. We see it as clear as day now. Solid, fuzzy, light gray, devoid of any sort of features. About child size, definitely around 5 foot or less. At this point, third friend walks up from the car and starts to get terrified. He sees it too. The figure takes a step towards us, then another, and another, faster each step, to the speed of a run, right towards us, huddled together, panicking like bitches. As soon as it hits the light of the street light that is blocked by the hill the graveyard is on, it's gone in an instant, only for my 2 friends to run straight through it. One thing I like to do is meditate in cemeteries and graveyards. I find it peaceful, but one time, shit got a little creepy. Hiking through a wooded area not too far from where I live, looking for cool shit people discarded to be forgotten. Lose track of time, wander really far out. Come across the edge of the woods, emerge in a place I don't recognize. A clearing that must have been about the size of a football field. Spot a small group of really old looking headstones. Excited, I investigate. All of them are terribly worn, the lettering completely lost to the elements. I feel a sadness for these long forgotten people with lost names. I say a prayer for them and begin to meditate. After a few hours, I'm stirred by a cool breeze. The sun is setting, so I quickly retrace my path and eventually find my way back home. Emptying my pockets, I find a tarnished silver ring. Have no recollection of finding it or putting it in my pocket. I inspect the ring closely. On the inside of the band, the numbers 1802 are engraved. The next day, I take the ring to a jeweler. Get told that the ring is indeed silver, and looks beat up enough to really be 200 years old. I decide to keep the mysterious ring. I loop a ribbon through it and wear it as a pendant. One night, I fall asleep with it on. Have this weird dream filled with people I don't recognize. Immediately, suspect the ring is haunted. Return to the old graveyard and leave the ring in the grass where I assume it came from. Pray for the forgotten and leave once again. At home, as I empty my pockets, I once again find the silver ring. Assume the previous owner of the ring must want me to have it. Begin wearing it at the bed every night to further investigate the dreams. Dreams full of same old timey looking folks I saw before. One character continuously catches my eye, a young man in fancy clothes wearing a single silver ring. Whenever he notices me, he smiles and says thank you. I still visit that graveyard sometimes,